Breaking down Arizona Wildcats football. It is game week as the Cats getting set to head on up to Las Vegas, Nevada to take on the Brigham Young Cougars. I'm David Kelly, joined as always by Glenn Howell, U of A football class of 1985. And Glenn, obviously we're going to get into our full preview later in the week of this ball game, the season opener. But what I want to talk about in this particular episode is strength and conditioning, because that is your forte and what you do here locally, here in the community. And the reason I want to talk about it is because we've really never dove into strength and conditioning and how it relates to the Arizona Wildcats. And this is our fourth regime. Yeah. We started under Mike Stoops, Rich Rodriguez, Kevin Sumlin, and now Jed Fish. We have seen four different strength coaches come in here. And I think the interesting thing that we hear every time we get a new staff is how great the strength and conditioning coach is, how much he's remaking guys' bodies. And I think the question that I have for you is, what really are the fundamental differences from what we've seen going back to when we had Corey Edmond here, to Chris Allen under Rich Rodriguez, to Brian Johnson with Kevin Sumlin, and now Tyler Owens with Jed Fish?
Well, Dave, the first thing is that you got to look at the time factor. How long do they have with these kids? How many years they have to develop them? In the Pac-12, what we're looking at, we want to develop pros. Who has had the most pros, who's been there the longest time? Well, Corey Edmonds. You think about Corey Edmonds, and Chris Allen had a few, and Brian Johnson didn't really have enough time. And then now Tyler Owens is going to have a time to develop these players into pros. And what you have to think about is that these strength and conditioning coaches are trying to keep these kids healthy. Make sure they're not getting hamstrings, shoulders. Those are the main parts of our bodies in football that we get injuries in. Shoulder injuries from tackling, hamstrings, pec injuries, all those things from pushing, all those things, and you've got to be able to make sure that those kids are ready for coaches, and the more practices they're in, the better they will be.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting just because of the standpoint, and I look at, we've heard a lot about how great Tyler Owens is, and nothing against Tyler Owens, but he's young. He's a first time leading a strength and conditioning at this level, much like Jed Fish is a first time coach, and I'm sure he's remaking a lot of guys, but we hear that. We hear that same statement with all of these guys coming in. There are guys that raved about Brian Johnson. You obviously raved about him as well. Are the same guys that are raving about Tyler Owens now. So what have you identified, or that you've seen so far, that maybe some of the fundamental differences between what Tyler is doing and what we saw maybe with the last regime under Brian Johnson?
Well, what I always think is, like, my goal is to take Ned Nobody to Sam Somebody, okay? That's what you have to really do. That's your goal, is to take these kids and develop them. Brian was doing a lot of the progression, doing all the stuff. He had to catapult, testing their speed and everything. And I think Tyler's doing the same thing, but I really have not gotten a chance to go in there and really talk to him. But the things that I've heard from him, the velocity training, moving weight fast, all those kinds of things are the new things that are out there that are making kids stronger, faster, and explosive.
Obviously, he comes with a little bit of an interesting pedigree coming from Alabama, which is obviously, the king college football program of the world. And this is what I would say to that. And this is not a knock on you, Glenn, but I'm sure you could go to Alabama and be a great strength and conditioning coach with the talent that they get
like
there.
I say, you're just putting rims on Bentleys, okay? That's what you're doing. You're putting rims on Bentleys, because those guys come in already developed. There's a thing that you have to do, the assessment. Do they have hip flexibility? How is their shoulder flexibility? All those kinds of things. Can they move across their body on all different planes? Those are the things that you have to do in the assessment part to make sure you take away those deficiencies and make them strengths.
So then how are you guys grading yourselves in terms of strength and conditioning? Because obviously football is a high impact sport. There are going to be impact injuries. So is it based off of, like you like to use the term, those soft tissue injuries?
Yes, with the Sugar Skulls, I told the guys, I said, I want in week 17, I want everybody working out. And if I have everybody in week 17, I did a pretty good job. Me and the ATC, your communication with your ATC is so important. Understanding what the issues are. How am I going to work with that kid in the weight room when he has a little bit of an issue, has an injury? How am I going to get that guy better? Because he's always rehabbing. So my week 17, I had every single player that was on the roster in the weight room. So I felt that I had a very successful season. We got rid of the hamstring issues in the beginning of the season because you never know what these guys coming in, are they in good shape? They're pulling hamstrings. So we got rid of all that work, got that done, and it's important for us to look at we get a sheet every week of all the injuries, and then you say, what can I do with this kid in the weight room? I don't like having kids coming in and they don't have nothing to do. I will have something for them to do. They got to do something, work on something that's not injured. And that is the goal of a strength coach, working with the ATC.
And when you say ATC, for those that maybe are athletic trainers, those are the trainers. So that is a daily conversation that the strength coach has to be happening.
You have to have that good relationship with them. I had a great relationship with Kaylee on our side at the Sugar Skulls. She was communicating with me. She was telling me I was looking at trends. I was like saying, are we seeing a lot of hands? Are we seeing a lot of shoulders? Well, then what are we doing here? Am I not doing nothing? I look at my program and see if I doing the right things on the daily workouts. Are they getting dead leg? I ask my players every single day. They come up during stretch. How's your body feeling? Are you feeling dead leg? Am I going too hard on your leg? That's what my mind is thinking. So I gotta understand the communication with your players is so important too.
And in terms of the relationship between the players and the strength coach, and I want to go back to when you were here at the University of Arizona, having a chance to work for the legendary Meg Ritchie, the first strength and conditioning coach, I believe, in Division I in college.
Dr. Meg Ritchie-Stone.
Exactly.
Yes.
What was that relationship like with her when you were a player?
Well, Meg came in, and she came in and she changed all of us. She changed. We went into good Olympic lifts. We did a lot of stuff for the progression. She was like kind of before her time, and she really studied athleticism, movement patterns, everything. Those are all the things that made us better players. And you could see through those years that Meg was there's a lot of pros that came out of there. Okay.
Some who are
I wish I was one of them, but I just made the training camp. But but there was a lot of pros that came out of there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Glenn, I guess just to kind of wrap this up, then, what are you initially going to be looking for then in terms of how this team is prepared to go into the season from the strength and conditioning side of it?
I'm going to look at how are we doing as far as the injury reports during the whole first couple of weeks, three weeks, finding out if there's soft tissue issues. Are we getting overpowered by these guys? How are we doing that? when I look at the film, I look at some of the things like how are they bending? Are they bending? They have just flexibility issues. Some of that might be just flexibility, not strength. You can have the strongest guy in the world, and if he can't bend, he has no leverage. So we have to understand what we're looking at. So that's what I look at as a strength and conditioning coach, as an analyst for the football team.
Well, our defensive MVP last year was Christian Roland Wallace. That's one of the guys who has been remade from what we've been told, a lot leaner from him. Maybe we'll get that extra half-inch vertical that could save the game like it would have last year at USC.
And I tell you what, I used to say, I thought that Christian should have went to see Jenny Craig because I thought he was a little heavy. I thought he was a little bit heavy. So I thought that, and I saw him just recently at practice, and I thought he looks great.
So how do you think that's going to help him?
That's going to help him be able to move faster, quicker, side to side, all those things. Having excess weight when you're playing as a football player is not good. Even as a lineman, when you're 310 pounds, you want to be feeling athletic and feeling really fast. And that's what you have to do. And if you have excess body weight, you feel a little bit sluggish. Your sleep patterns are not good. All those things when you have excess fat.
All right, well, it's a good thing we heard from Jed Fish earlier this week that outside of obviously the Jamar Joyner situation with a surgery injury coming in, for the most part, everybody is healthy coming into this initial game week, and obviously that's one of the things you want.
That's what we want. We want them to be healthy, and then let's move forward. So we go into our game thinking, Tyler probably said, hey, Coach, I gave you a whole team of healthy guys. Let's go do it.
All right, next time you hear from us, we'll be talking some football as we get you set for the BYU Cougars and the Arizona Wildcats. Glenn, as always, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And stay with us for continuing coverage of Arizona Wildcats football.